Alright. Hello guys, welcome to the second part of the video. So if you have watched the first part in Swanky Medics, so over there we talked about very important stuff about like full of information about how to get admissions, cost fees and structure of the degree. So a very good video on the first part of the things and first part of the video actually. So it's on Swanky Medics. Go there and watch the video, subscribe, like, share, do everything. Okay, then now we are in the second part of the video. So in this part we're going to talk about language barrier, then the cost of living and student life in Italy and as well as in KDU in Sri Lanka. So you want to go for the first section?
Yeah, sure. Now we're going to talk about language barrier here. So the thing is, most of the people that come to KDU as an international students are Sri Lankans. We do have some students that come from Bhutan who are not familiar with the language. So if you're as a Sri Lankan coming from outside, you have in a way you've been exposed to the language. So for example, in my case, I didn't know how to speak the language, but I didn't understand whenever someone speaks to me. I would be able to understand that, and in a way somehow with broken Sinhala I was still able to answer their questions. So if you're in a scenario where you don't know the language, it's still okay because most people speak in English. The course itself is done in English. All the lecturers, administrative staff members, everyone speak English. So in that front of view, you shouldn't be feeling uncomfortable by being part of a medical degree here at KDU. But from third year onwards, that's where it becomes a little bit more difficult for you guys, because then you'll have to be speaking Sinhala with patients. There are histories to be taken, so you have to understand what the issues are, why did they come to the hospital and what are the symptoms. So you'll have to speak in Sinhala because majority, like 95% of the population in Sri Lanka, especially people that come to the hospital, don't speak English. So what I did when I started clinicals was I had a tutor, she was a Sinhala teacher, a teacher that basically teaches Sinhala, and I did a few classes with her over a period of 1 month, where I did 1 or 2 classes every week, and I asked different phrases that I needed to ask histories, like what is your name, why did you come today, where is your pain, what sort of pain it is, sort of questions that you'll always be asking from patients. And I wrote those down into a CR book, and then whenever I went to speak to patients, I would bring that book with me and I would constantly repeat those phrases to them. And eventually over 2 to 3 weeks asking the same questions every day, you get used to them, and in that way you're starting to build up in your Sinhala. You start to understand the language, and whenever the patients speak to you, you'll also get to understand their responses, and most likely will always be the same responses. Over a period of time, you'll see the same responses are going to be given, so it becomes easier. So I would say the first year maybe of clinicals, which will be your third year, is that period where you find it a little bit difficult, but eventually over the period of time you start to get more and more used to the language, and will not become a problem. So especially for our students that came from Bhutan, similar situation. Third year they found it very difficult because they were never exposed to the Sri Lankan to Sinhala, so they found it difficult. But even now most of them speak very fluent Sinhala. So I would say if you're intimidated by this entire thing about not speaking the language, don't worry too much about it, because now even now from the current first years are taught Sinhala. We were not taught Sinhala when we came in, so it's a new additional thing that has been added to the course, where students who don't speak the language, like the Bhutan students or Sri Lankans that don't speak fluently, they speak broken Sinhala or don't speak the language at all, now they have the chance to learn Sinhala from the first year onwards. So from that perspective, yeah, don't be too intimidated by it. It's still a good opportunity for you guys to come here. The entire course is done in English, exams are done in English, your finals done in English. Internship wise, most of the people like nurses and conductors also do speak basic English, so you won't be feeling intimidated or uncomfortable working here in Sri Lanka or by doing the degree over here. So
Okay,
that's said
so-
now.
Yeah. So when you talk about the language barrier, it's kind of the similar, like exactly same in here. So obviously Italians, like they don't, most of the patients, they don't speak English, especially as I said in the first video, like in the old people especially, they don't know anything about English. So we just have to know Italian. But the thing is, like, university is really helpful in teaching us Italian, because from the first year onwards we have a Italian degree, language program. We are literally finishing the first part of the course in next year. We are finishing next week. We are finishing the Italian language course. So of course, in order to go to the clinical practice, we need to have at least B2 of Italian. So that's the minimum requirement that we need. So it doesn't matter if you don't have the B2, but if you can speak, let's say, if you can speak Italian, then it's obviously fine that you don't have to do any course on Italian language. So that is the only language barrier problem that we have, just to talk to the patient, like you said. So I think by the 4th year, 5th year, we'll be able to speak Italian very fluently. I hope so. So yeah, that's exactly the same as you said. So that's it about language barrier. And especially if you go out of Rome, to go out, then obviously you will find at least one person who speaks in English. Even if you go to a shop or a supermarket, then obviously you're gonna find someone who speaks English. So it really doesn't matter at this point knowing Italian. So don't, as you said, don't be too worried about the language barrier, because you'll be eventually will know that's how language works, right? So that's it about language barrier. Just don't be too worried about language.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on now to the next topic, which is cost of living. Now, for
That's
me,
very
my it's very important. So now, for me, my monthly budget varies from 100,000 to just about 150,000 from month to month. So that's basically including all the bills. It includes transport, food for the month, and any additional stuff that might be needed for university. So everything is basically covered around that. Even if I want to go out with my friends, everything is within that budget. So, and that's mostly, I don't know if it's, Taminder, do you think that's a little bit too high, too low? What do you think?
150,000, it's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. Okay, so the thing is, because I live a little bit far away from the university, so in order to get to the unis, usually I take tux in the morning.
Yeah,
so
I think that's
covers
really expensive.
a big cost. Yeah, so just
Yeah.
to cover those, basically it's about 40 to 50k right there, just to cover for
Yeah.
those expenses. Because you'll be leaving for the university very early in the morning, sometimes even 5 o'clock. So at that time it's hard to find buses and the transportation system.
Yeah,
So I
it's really
have to
sucks
re-
when
we
the
have to
public
rely on
transport
tux.
is not working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially when you finish late at night, 11, 12, again, it's very difficult to get back home unless you have your own car. So I have to rely to use, taxis, Ubers, pick-me's. So that covers a lot of the costs that from my budget, basically. And also accommodation wise, I go from my own house, but most of the other international students, now the local students that recently started, they have to either find their own accommodation nearby the university, or we have a hostel with the hospital in Verere, which varies from prices to prices. Now for international students, it's about from 250 American dollars to about 350 American dollars, depending on what you need, whether you want a room just for with the fan, or if you want AC, or if you want your own bathroom. So there are different categories and different prices for those categories. For local students, a little bit cheaper. They go from 15,000 to about 30,000 rupees per month. So there are different prices for international and the local students. So that's a thing that you have to keep in mind when you look at expenses. If you're looking at private rooms around the Ratmalan area near the campus, those can be from 7,500 to about 10,000 rupees per month. And again, those varies depending on the facilities that you want. And in terms of food expenses, now it depends from whether you're able to cook within your own apartment or whether you rely food from outside. Like a lot of our cadets, because they're not able to cook from outside, from their own place, from their own apartments, they rely on a daily basis from food outside. So they do end up spending most of their budget on buying food. Okay, so typically rice packets go anywhere from 300 all the way to 1,000 or even more. So depending obviously on the quality, then it's up to you how much you want to spend. But if you're like me that live in their own apartment, then you're able to cook for yourself, and that's something that I do, not obviously on a daily basis, but whenever I can, I try to do that as well, and that reduces a lot the cost. And now in terms of the food available here in Sri Lanka, like because I'm from Italy, from the UK, so I'm very used to for a European style of eating. That obviously comes at a much bigger price than what you tend to find here in Sri Lanka, like local foods. So obviously that's another thing to keep in mind. Food being imported from outside is more expensive. So if you want to keep maintaining sort of lifestyle that you had or in your country, then obviously that comes at an expense. So you have to keep that in mind. Extracurricular wise, there are being a medical student, extracurricularly you don't have much time to get involved in other activities. Like you barely get the time to go for gym even. So gym wise, like expenses are much differ from what you want. Like they start from even 1,000 rupees and they can go up to even 10,000 rupees per month. So depending on the facilities again. So there are things for everyone, I suppose. If there are much more budget versions for students, or if you want something more a bit more fancy and so on, obviously there's that as well, but obviously you have to keep in mind costs. So majority of people that I know in France, they do also have a budget they can vary between 70 to 100,000, and there are obviously people that go even 150 or even more. So depends from your style of living, what it is that you want, and that your budget as well. Then there are things for everyone. So the thing to gather from here is that don't worry too much about it, because there, like I said, there's something for everyone. So keep a budget in mind, and there definitely be a possibility for you to work around that and to make the most out of the money and the budget that you have. And again, it's obviously up to you. So sometimes I even find myself where I might not have enough to cover for the full expenses for the month, so I have to cut down on certain things in order to make sure that I'm able to complete everything within the month with the amount that I have. So yeah, I would say
Okay.
that's all from me.
Okay, so when you talk about the cost of living, especially it depends mainly on the place that you are living in, because here it costs like accommodation cost the half, like even like 70% of the monthly budget. For example, if you're living like really near to the university, then obviously it's gonna be like 600-700 euros per month, so which is like really high. So, and obviously if you are living outside of the university, for example, like 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers outside of the university, then it's gonna be dropped like to 300 and 350 euros per month. So that's basically been said, like the accommodation actually costs like 60-70% of your monthly budget. So, and also, so when you talk about the food expenses, for example, food expenses, like if you want to eat well all the 3 meals, for example, Sri Lankans eat all the 3 meals, so it's gonna be cost around like 150 euros, like max, because the food here is like very affordable. I think you know about it. So like there are different varieties of prices and variety very like very vivid amount of foods, and it's really up to you. Like if you want to eat 3 meals, then eat well, then obviously it's like 150 euros is like, for me it's like way more than enough to eat the whole month. So as I said, the most part of the budget depends on the place that you are living in. For example, in my case, I live in outside of the university, of course, and I just have to pay like 250 euros per month. So I'm currently living with a Sri Lankan family, which is really good. I think I'm like privileged here, so because 250 is like basically nothing. So that being said, so my budget was like monthly budget is like 350 euros per month, like in total. So it's really good. And also, as it said, in Sri Lanka the public transport is not really good, so obviously you have to take some tuk-tuks and Ubers. So in here also, if you took an Uber, then it's gonna cost more, but here the public transport is really convenient. So even at late nights, it doesn't matter the time of the day, late nights, 12 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., we have public transport going on. So it's obviously, if you're like at 12 a.m., then you have to go through a different route, and maybe like you have to spend like 30 minutes more on the road, but still you're gonna have the public transport, which is very low. And also you can get the yearly season, I think, we call it season, yearly pass for the metro, bus and trains around Rome. So it's gonna cost, and also it depends on the essay again. If your income statement is very low, then it's gonna, and also if you have applied for the scholarship, it's gonna cost me like, I have a video on that, it's gonna cost me like 130 euros for the whole year. So it's like basically nothing. So then about the rooms, as I said, if you're near the university, it's gonna cost more. Then about the food expenses, again I said. And then Sri Lankan food availability, we have Sri Lankan food here, but as you said, it's not hard to find, but it's gonna cost more, for example, like, but not that much, like maybe 50 cents, 1 euro than the Italian food we can find here. I don't know, because of the taxes, or maybe they want to keep some profit out of it. So that's why like it's gonna cost more, like 50 cents, 80 cents more. So again, it's like basically nothing. So food here is, don't worry about that too much, because you'll be able to eat here. Believe me, you'll get fat when you come to Europe. You know what I'm saying? There are so many things to eat here, so it's really hard to not like they are really cheap, and then you can eat a lot. So there are very amount of foods, like a huge variety. Or even when you go to the supermarket, if you want biscuits, like there are hundreds of biscuits that in every flavor that you want. So don't go to a supermarket when you're hungry. Just keep that in mind. Then about the extracurricular activities, we have a sports complex. Yeah, sports complex in Sapienza. Obviously not inside the university. It's like a huge place with the swimming pools, gyms, and running tracks and everything. Gymnastic, anything you want, you can do. But it's outside of the university, maybe like 2-3 kilometers away from the university. So, and also if you're a student, if you're of course if you're a university student, it's gonna cost like 100 euros again per year. So it's again basically like nothing. It's 100 euros per year. How much? Like 9-10 euros per month for a gym. Obviously, if you are only a university student, but if you want to go to a private gym, then it's gonna cost like 80 euros per month. So that's the difference. So going to the gym and doing extracurricular activities within the university, I mean conducted by the universities, then it's gonna cost very low. So okay, finally about the cost of living, I spend like 350 euros on everything, on food and the rent and everything. But that's not the case. Okay, this is like a privilege case. But if you are really coming as an international student and if you don't know anyone around from here, then it's gonna be like at least 600 euros per month because of the accommodation and the food, and obviously it depends on you, but as I said, like 60-70% depends on the room or the place that you are living in. And if you, again, a quick thing, if you are applying for the scholarship at the same time, this is also a widely asked question in my comments. If you apply for the scholarships, you can apply for the accommodations as well. Then what happens is, as I said, like we get 7,800. From that 7,800, they're gonna deduct some amount of money to the accommodation, and then you can live in the accommodation. It's like basically free. You can live free, and they give you money. So, so most of the cases you will not get single rooms. You get to live with another person which is coming from another country, or maybe an Italian. It doesn't matter. So that's the thing. If you apply for a scholarship, then you can apply for the accommodation, and it's like basically nothing. So that's about the cost of living. It's just an overview.
Okay, so then let's talk about our student life.
The best part.
So in terms of yeah, juicier part. You see a lot of differences now between the KDU and like Sri Lankan universities and the Italians. Now, point of view of living in a different country, like because I'm from like I've been living for a long time in Italy and then quite recently in the UK. So obviously from a European perspective, living in Sri Lanka is a lot more different. There are cultural differences. Even if you're Sri Lankan, like living as a Sri Lankan in Europe is different from living as a Sri Lankan literally here in Sri Lanka. So you'll see there are so many differences, and you feel like a foreign in your own country. So there are things that you have to get used to when you come in, and you know that's why you keep always an open mind that you should be able to adapt to the situations that you're going to be placed in. And from that said, like there are even interacting with students, your own colleagues, like even lecturers, there are a lot of differences. Interacting with like teachers in the UK or other places is completely different. So there are cultural differences that you need to get used to, and some people find it very difficult initially. So that's something that you'll have to keep on with. Obviously there are language barriers, so you have to keep that in mind. Not everyone speaks in English. or if you're from Italy, obviously no one speaks in Italian, so on. So Sinhala and Tamil, those are the two main languages spoken in Sri Lanka. Now, in terms of nightlife, now that's very important for any university student. So, as a medical student here, like I mentioned in my in the previous video as well, is that you don't get much time to get involved like in extracurricular activities, or even to to go out with friends, or to get involved in this nightlife. From third year onwards, you're going to be placed in hospitals, and we have what we call casualty days. And during those days, you have to be at the hospital until the required time given from your consultant. Certain consultants are nice, and they will say, okay, you have to stay until 6-7 p.m. Others will say you have to stay till midnight, or even till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, sometimes even overnight. So you'll have to stay the full day, full night, basically. And then you basically, when it comes to those occasions, you'll find a room nearby the hospital where you rent out a room, and then you stay there over the night, basically. So the chances to get involved in nightlife are quite limited. I'm not saying that it's impossible. There are times, if you get better appointments, or during the short holidays that you might get, like Saturdays and Sundays, you can go out with your friends. But obviously that happens quite rarely. And obviously with the workload that comes in from being part of the daily like subjects that you're going to be involved in, and also the work that your consultant is going to give you to do overnight. So those are things that can become quite challenging, and therefore to have a appropriate student life becomes difficult. But especially during first and second year, you might have the opportunity, because Saturdays and Sundays are free, you don't have to go to the hospital, and usually university ends at 4 p.m. and there isn't that much work compared to from third year onwards. It's a little bit more lightweighted during the first 2 years. Then you might get a little bit more opportunities to get involved in student lives and like different activities. So that also, I mean, in terms of uni and like fun balance, do you have time to have fun with your friends and so on? So I think I covered that a little bit there, but it's going to be mostly university based. It's hard to have a balance where you do uni and you do fun as well. So the people that end up doing more fun than uni obviously are the people that might end up having to retake some subjects, or might have to retake a year. So it's all about having a good balance. So you have to keep in mind that if you're going towards more the fun area, the fun aspect, then you'll have to make sure that you keep a few days apart where you get involved more into uni stuff than your personal life. So it's all about balancing everything. But being truthfully honest, here in Sri Lanka, we are more running towards the point where your uni is essentially then your entire life within the 5 years of med school that you're going to be involved in. A lot of people ask about library facilities. Now, we don't have 24-hour library facilities. I used to be a medical student in the UK. We used to have these 24-hour library facilities. You can go anytime in the library. You can basically even stay there overnight. There are rooms where you can sleep in even if you were too tired. Over here, you don't have that. So our university is open only up to 6 o'clock. So that's the only time that you're able to stay within the uni premises. After 6, you're supposed to go back home. And libraries only there are public libraries that are only open up to 9 p.m. Mostly. Most of the ones that I know close about 5-6 o'clock. I think there was only one that I found that was open until that time. And Saturdays and Sundays are closed. So most of the time we find ourselves studying at home. That's the truth, honesty there. But there are places like different bars and cafes where you can go and you can study. Those are more in the Colombo area, so within our hospital settings, nearby the hospital and the university, you don't tend to find those sort of cafes. So obviously you have to keep in mind cost to go to those places. And also you have to buy stuff over there at the cafes, and because they're found within the Colombo area, within the center of the city, they are quite expensive as well. So all considered, a lot of our students basically study from home, unfortunately, so we don't have the luxury of having library facilities. And I think I also covered a little bit about the time to get involved in extracurricular activities. And like I said, there are other activities as a medical student that you're supposed to do, teaching, research, and those come outside of the general activities that you're supposed to do on a daily basis. So to cover all of those stuff together, trying to balance your personal life, is quite challenging. So it's a matter of balancing everything that you do and to prioritize certain things that you find important in your life. So if you find, for example, exercising, it's extremely vital for you, where you have to exercise every day just to keep your stress levels to a normal level, or it's your way of living, then you need to find time to do those kind of things. Like, for example, I don't go to the gym because I cannot keep up with those timings that they have. Usually gyms here are open until 9 p.m. and I'm still in the hospital during that time, so I don't have the time to go to a gym. So what I do early in the morning, just before I go to the hospital, I have a treadmill at home. I run on the treadmill. So that's how I get my dose of activity for the day. So you have to find different ways on how to get involved with the different activities that you want to do. So you have to work around this entire university schedule that we have. So I think that's all from me, Tom. You can go on with your part.
Right. So when you talk about the student life, so you of course living in a different country, it's a little bit strange, obviously, because you're getting exposed to new people and new culture. Obviously, we have a culture here. Every country has a culture, but the best part is they don't judge you like in Sri Lanka. You will get judged for everything that you do. Even if you go in a public transport, like even if you wear a headphone like this, then they will look at you like, what are you doing like this? Something like that. Yeah. So so that's the best part.
Like, in the morning I go to the hospital wearing this headphones. And, they find it really weird because they don't see people going around with this stuff. Like, even normal headphones, like the ones that you're currently wearing, people don't wear them there. And when you wear something like this, they find it strange. Everyone is looking at you, so you see even if you don't look at them directly, you feel it that people are looking at you.
You're being watched.
It can be weird.
So that's the worst part in when you have a culture like that in Sri Lanka. But here we don't get anything like that because they don't judge you. So that's the best part. That's the sort of a freedom, but so that's very good. So again, about the language barrier, we talked about the language barrier. It's not too much, so don't bother about it. You'll be able to speak Italian. Trust me, you'll be able to speak Italian. So it's not very hard because it goes like English. Even you write in English letters. So if you know English, obviously you're gonna know how to speak and write Italian. So don't bother about it too much. Okay, so when you talk about the nightlife, because you live in Europe, so nightlife in Europe is like it's fun, like it's on another level. So I don't want to get too much about the nightlife. So basically you can do there are so many things to do at night. There are bars, there are clubs, pubs. Even in Sri Lanka you have those kind of things, but here it's like more open. and you get to find them more everywhere in the city. And again, if you meet someone like a professor in the nightclub, so it doesn't matter. So they don't judge you, and we don't judge them. So it's our private life, and it's their private life. It's different. It's not like inside the university. Obviously, they're gonna have superiority than us. But when it comes to private life, it's kind of the same. We are same. So that's the best part here. And going out, it's really fun. But again, keep in mind, I'm talking on behalf of the first year. So I don't really have experience on the third year, because the schedule might get like packed on the third year with the clinical practices. Then the story can be totally different. Like, we don't have any time to go out. I don't know that, so I can't speak about that. But I'm talking on behalf of the first year. So you can have a lot of fun and a lot of nightlife going on. But as you said, everywhere in the world, if you go too much for fun, then you're gonna be left behind. I think, especially if you are doing a course like medicine, it's too much workload. So that's the main problem. Like, if you are gonna have too much fun, then obviously you're gonna be left behind, and that's a no-no for you. Please don't get left behind. You know how it's gonna be like if you don't do anatomy in the first semester, and then it's gonna be the next call is the second semester with histology and anatomy and psychology, everything at once. So it's a disaster. So it's very important to have a balance, especially when you are doing a degree like medicine, because it's like a marathon. You have to do for 6 years, same thing repeatedly for 6 years. So if you end up like losing some exams, then obviously it's like a snowball, like which gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually like it's only getting messier. So you will not find a way out, and will be stressful, and then you will drop out. So that's the truth. So behind medicine, so please don't get left behind. Don't go too much fun. Just have a balance, like uni life and fun, as Lasit said. So when you talk about library facilities, again, he said about European library culture, we have 24 hours open libraries, so which is really good. But personally, I don't use that much of libraries, because I basically do everything at my home. So if you want to go for 24 hours, there are so many. Like, there are like 4-5 libraries around the university just like open for 24 hours. So, and also once I get there, like, there are so many students who are coming to the libraries. That's why I think they build more and more libraries to get like everyone inside the libraries. Otherwise it will be getting packed. So that seems like everybody's using, so except few of us. So yeah, that's about the library facilities, 24-hour library facilities. And obviously, again, when you talk about extracurricular activities, again, now I'm talking on behalf of the first year. So we have, I don't say a huge amount of time, but considerable amount of time to go out and to do extracurricular activities, obviously. So because we have the lectures on the evening, and sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays we have totally free, like not like when you're doing the clinical. I think when you're doing clinicals you have to go on Saturdays and Sundays as well sometimes, right? I don't know. Yeah, so
sometimes it's not every week, sometimes you're supposed to go.
Sometimes. Yeah, I think it's the same here. Maybe when you go to third year, the thing can be totally different. So as of what I heard, like, the second year is like a hell. So from then third year it's kind of like okay. I have heard from what I have heard from my seniors, obviously. Then after the third year, again, it's gonna be like too much work with the clinical and the academic things. So that's about the student life. And if lastly, I'm gonna say again and again, please do medicine if you like it. So it's not like if someone pushes you, like even if you're family pushes you, or even if your friends tell to do it, or even if your friends are doing it and they're saying to come into medicine, please don't do like that. If you really like medicine, then do that. Otherwise, you won't enjoy this. So just
Yeah.
do it if you really like this. Otherwise, like helping people and getting involved in other human beings' lives, like you get to know the every personal detail when you are a doctor. So if you really like it, then get into it. Otherwise, don't get into it, like even when your family pushes you, because it's a lot of work. It's like a marathon. You have to enjoy your 6 years. Otherwise, you will be left over and left behind, and eventually you will drop out. Just trust me. So
Yeah,
that's the
because
advice
I
have
can
to
see it from my own perspective as well, because there are a few students within our course that have been pushed to do it. So what we are seeing is that they are falling behind a lot of
Yeah.
the subjects that we have done so far during third and fourth year. Those they end up failing, and they're still failing them countless amount of times. So, and that's not purely because they can't do it. They do have the capability to do it. It's just they're not interested. There's no
They don't
interest
wanna
in
do it.
the subjects.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there is no drive, there's no passion. So if you don't have a passion towards medicine, don't do it. There are so many other options where you can be extremely successful. You can be even more successful than being a doctor. So there are a lot of options for you guys. So you can go towards those options if you don't have a passion over medicine. And if you're unsure about career in medicine, there are other options that you can take within science, like biomedical science degrees, and you can see for yourself whether you're more interested towards the clinical aspect of things, where you just don't want to become a biomedical scientist working in the lab. Then after doing something like that, when you're more sure about it, then you can get into a medical degree. And you're not losing anything by doing a biomedical science degree first and then doing medicine later. Actually, it's going to help you out during the first 2 years. You build so much knowledge from your previous degree that medicine is going to become even easier then. But more than that, with biomedical science, with a degree in that, it's going to back you up when it comes to your specialties. You have already done research beforehand. So you have a lot of experience that a lot of other people graduating with just a medical degree don't have. So there are different options. So don't just run into medicine because someone is telling you to, or because you think that it has very good career perspectives. Because most jobs nowadays, even within Europe, even if you become an accountant, it's still an amazing job, and you can become even more successful than a doctor.
Yeah.
So I know that's a little bit different in Sri Lanka, where they look a lot more in the hierarchical system. Doctors have very big stature and very big salaries compared to other positions, but that's not true everywhere. So just keep that in mind.
So that being said, I think that's it for this video. Please look at the first video. If you are just looking at this one at first, then there is another video which is related to this one in Swanky Medics. So go to that channel and subscribe. And that's it. So if you have any questions, just comment, like, share the video, and there are a lot of information which are really helpful. That's it.
Alright, so I think we conclude that then. Okay.
So
bye guys.
Bye bye.
See you soon.
See you. Bye bye.